you're kind of segueing me on your own, which is killer. um, but you're talking about like the attention to details and stuff like that. So I've heard that you are very attentive and meticulous to detail when it comes to just like writing your music, and also just your staffing as far as the expectation for the staff to understand the music, to have the music, and just like teaching it and very meticulous with like scheduling. And I think that that's one part of the activity that a lot of people miss, especially with a big organization like yours, which I think really can be I don't know, inserted into any organization, but just not going into a rehearsal with being like, well, this sounded bad yesterday, so I guess we'll work on that for a little bit, and I guess we'll work on this for a little bit. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't work because, you have to have a bigger plan than that. A lot of it starts with what was the reason you wrote it in the first place. And my mentor was Tom Hannum. So if you look at Tom Hannum's scores over the years, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of information on the scores. So that's what I come from. I've
is he
evolved a
still
little.
handwriting his?
No, he's not, but I still am.
Oh,
Funny
are you?
enough. Oh
Oh,
yeah,
wow, dude, that's
I'm
sick.
I am for my like the drum corps groups. I definitely do. I use finale at a slower pace, and I use that with my bands and stuff like that. But the drum corps kids get my handwritten scores because I feel like I can manipulate the detail on the score better. The difference that I've changed, like when I was teaching stars, so this is a million years ago, what was on the page is what we taught, and that was it. Until that was perfect, I didn't even think about changing the parts. And I think that what I've evolved in is that we start from that premise, and then when it's needed, we change. So we can pivot based on, yeah, let's bring that up a little bit. And sometimes I'm like, no, let's bring the tap level down a little bit, because that's, even though it's uncomfortable, it's important for that part of the show. Um, but I think being flexible is the way to kind of do it now, to try to be more flexible about the player perspective is something that is more important to me than it used to be. But we're talking about a smaller degree of change because you're starting from a very organized place. And that's my approach, is to have I want all the sound organized, and then I want to mess it up. That's more how I write.
I love it. So speaking of like you're talking about heights and this and that, are you, I guess, pedagogically into you put heights on the page versus dynamics, or is it like a little bit of a hybrid of both? Um, are you into more like the look of like everybody moves the same, or let's try to make everybody sound is the same and then adjust the look from that if somebody's like way out of whack? What's kind of your philosophy in that regard?
I think the thing that I do that is from the old days is that it's about individual quality. So the individual, like a lot of our assignments that we do are based on the individual being able to perform as a soloist, play their stuff to, in a lot of cases now we do it to the MIDI, we'll do it to the brass MIDI. So they're required to play the parts to the wind MIDI, and it's got to be perfect within that context. That's like what we're doing virtually. So that's where we start from. But the heights and like the basic, I have a height system, I guess. Like I talk about like a zip code. It's like the city limits. To get in the city limits, you have to have, the dynamic scheme is this. And I do that from a player perspective because I was a player. It's not that deep. I mean, I'm not a composer. I compose for a living, but I'm not a composer. I was a player, and I was a technician. So I think everything I write starts from there, how I would play it. And then from there, we will adjust. So you're in that city limits when you start adjusting. And there are definitely, I mean, we're adjusting the dynamics all the time. But the way it's written, they're required to play it how it's written. But that being said, heights aren't mathematical, because if we play low and fast, it's light. If we play low and open rhythms, it's weighted. If we play huge fortissimo, some kind of a content that's not just slams at the end of a phrase, but you're playing, fours, or you're playing some kind of something that is articulated. We play with weight if it's open enough. So I think the touch is always changing. the quality of the sound inside the dynamics is always changing. That's what makes drumming so unique. And I think the look of it for me is about the drumming style is the look. So like I try to write the drumming so that if you drum it right, it has a look. I don't make the look out of the drumming, if that makes sense. It's
Right.
not backwards. It's and not that not if groups do that, it's fantastic. Just the way that I think about it is more because I write a very physical book. I mean, I like the energy, I like the visceral quality. As a player, when I played, that's what I was engaged with. So I like there to be an organic energy about the music. And we play a lot of notes. We play a lot of continuous phrases of notes. So for me, it's about trying to keep that energy going and sustaining it. So if we have to adjust something, it's based on that.